This is Granny Dawn. We're going to start a new chapter book today. The title is Steinbeck's Ghost. The author is Louis Busby. And we begin, of course, with chapter 1. He finally found the word he had been looking for. Camazotz. The moment Travis Williams stepped out of his house into the warm September afternoon, the word came to him. For months, ever since he and his parents had moved into the new house, he had been trying to figure out what was so creepy about this place. Now he knew. He stepped off the porch into the bright sunshine and whispered the word, Camazotz. A Wrinkle in Time was one of Travis's favorite books. He'd first borrowed it from the library a couple of years ago when he was 11 and had probably borrowed it 3 times since. Read it he didn't know how many times. Whenever he thought of the book, he pictured the planet Camazotz. On Camazotz, everything was perfect. Every house was exactly like every other house, every lawn like all the rest. Every garden grew the same kind of flower and the exact same number of those flowers. Everyone in Camazotz dressed like everyone else. And they all did the same things and at the same times. One child played ball in front of each house, and each ball bounced to the same beat. Camazotz was supposed to be a perfect planet. And in a way, Travis thought, it was perfect. Perfectly creepy. Bella Linda Terrace was supposed to be perfect too. At least, that's what Travis's parents told him. The house was big and brand new, much bigger than the old house. Bathrooms galore, huge bedrooms, and in the living room, cathedral ceilings. His parents said, cathedral ceilings, in breathy voices, as if these were the magic words that might open Aladdin's cave. Before they'd moved in, Travis also thought that Bella Linda Terrace might be perfect. It was a spanking new subdivision surrounded by a high stone wall. The houses had just been built, many of them still waiting for their lawns. The first time Travis toured Bella Linda Terrace with his parents, the fresh smell of the sun-baked earth was everywhere. He loved that smell. The streets were wide and clean and newly coated with black tar. Travis loved that smell too. Hot asphalt. When they walked through the model of the new house, his parents showed him which room would be his. Travis would have the enormous bedroom at the front of the house with 2 high, wide windows and a vast expanse of floor. His bedroom on Riker Street was about the size of the closet here, cramped but cozy. His new bedroom was palatial. All of it he kept asking. All of it mine? Travis loved the view from these windows. His desk would go right in front of one. He could see all the way across the valley, past the freeway, to Old Town Salinas, and beyond that, the dark Santa Lucia Mountains, and beyond that, the ocean. But his parents had saved the best for the last that day. When they left the model home, they drove to the far side of Bella Linda Terrace and parked above the community pool. A pool! It was Olympic sized. The water as bright as a sapphire. There was a high dive and a 3-story water slide. You can go every single day if you want, his mom said. Travis felt like he was going to fall right out of the car. They moved in just after school let out for summer. Travis tried his best to decorate his room, not sure he had enough stuff to fill it up. He made sure to swim every day, mostly twice a day, and made a great friend, Hilario. But he never quite got over how weird Bella Linda Terrace felt. Waking up in Bella Linda Terrace was like wearing a shirt that was too tight. He couldn't get used to it. Camazotz, he said again, standing on the porch. The word sounded too loud. It's just like Camazotz. The hot afternoon wind pushed against him, trying to blow him up into the hills. At the old house, there were big trees that offered shade and cut off the afternoon wind. But in Bella Linda Terrace, all the trees were just saplings. The trees here were like a kindergartner's drawing of what a tree should be. Stick trunks with stick branches. There was no shade at all, and every afternoon the wind was fierce and steady. I live on Camazotz, Travis said. It was true. Everything here was exactly the same as everything else. Nothing was out of place. There was one huge difference, though, between here and Camazotz. At least on that tedious planet, children played in the streets. The streets of Bella Linda Terrace were deserted. Nothing moved except the wind. Creepy. He'd better get going to Hilario's. Hill's bedroom was always dark. Excuse me. He kept it dark because it made playing video games easier. No glare on screen. But Travis didn't understand why it had to be dark when he wasn't playing. Travis and Hill basically lived in the same house, Camazotz again. Although Hill's house was 3 twisting blocks from Travis's, both had the same floor plan. Hill's bedroom was the same size and in the same slot over the garage as Travis's, and both houses had the same footprint, as his dad liked to say. They faced the same direction, west, across Salinas. But you'd never know it because Hill's curtains were always closed. The curtains were heavy and black as night. Couldn't get much darker. Travis fingered the bottom edge of the thick curtain. He was almost afraid to open it. The perfectly bored children of Camazotz might be on the other side of the glass, playing their reasonable games. "So, Big T," Hill said, "what you gonna eat?" Hill clutched a fan of video game boxes in one hand while he gracefully swept the other across them, like the hostess of a TV game show. "First up," Hill said, his voice now an announcer's baritone, "for your gaming pleasure, Triumphant Weasel, a riveting journey through a forest of evil-eyed rodents. Next is Going Gong 2, whose mysteries of the Far East are not for the squeamish. And today's final selection, Icon, where contestants scramble to create world-crushing corporations. All items sold separately." Travis didn't want to play video games today, but he had a laugh. Hill was a funny guy. That's all there was to it. Sometimes Travis laughed just looking at him, as if he could almost hear the funny things cooking in Hill's head. Even his name was funny. Hill. Hilario. Hilarious. Travis nudged the curtain and peeked out the window. The world was still there. "I don't know, man," Travis said. "Whatever. Or, I mean, don't you want to go outside or something? There's no one out there. We could do anything." "Oh, dude," Hill said, "you know I'd love to, but my delicate skin, she is so pale." Hilario's skin was as brown as a walnut. "No, really," Travis said. "Let's ride bikes or something. Get outside. The dark in here is so cold. So cold." "Maybe tomorrow. I gotta be here at 4 sharp. I set up an icon session with the guys. Have to be online by then." Hill cued Triumphant Weasel and leaped onto a sofa 2 feet from the TV. Travis shrugged and fell onto the sofa too, and began blasting net bombs at evil ferrets and vile stoats. Afternoons with Hill weren't like this at first. They'd met at the pool a few weeks before school started, and Travis liked him on the spot. He remembered the first time he saw him, Hilario walking off the high dive as if taking a stroll, only realizing halfway to the water where he was, and then running like crazy in midair to save himself. Travis was already laughing before Hill's big splash. When Hill got out of the water, he took a regal bow. But the only one in the audience was Travis. Everyone else was splashing and screaming. Travis got in the high dive line behind him, and just as Hill was about to go onto the board, he asked him to do his funny walk again. "Check this out," Hill said. He ambled to the edge of the diving board, turned, and looked into the distance, as though he'd forgotten something. Then he pretended to lose his balance and windmilled all the way to a big sploosh. About the funniest thing Travis had ever seen. After that, they were together every day, which was a good thing because Travis had been worried about making new friends. Not worried, really, more like uninformed. He'd never moved before. And even though Bella Linda Terrace was only 4 miles from Riker Street, everything had changed. New school, new friends. He wasn't really sure what to do, as simple as that. Did you sit at home and wait for a welcoming committee to come over for a snack and sign up to be your friends? For the first 2 months at Bella Linda Terrace, Travis went to the pool every day. He swam and dived and slid down the slide and occasionally got into a 30 or 40 kid game of Marco Polo. It wasn't like all the other kids here had friends already. It was a new place for everyone. Some kids did have friends, but they traveled in small groups, twos and threes, groups that were harder to break into. There were a lot of brothers and sisters, and they formed their own little knots. The rest of the kids seemed as uncertain as Travis, but he figured friends would happen eventually. Travis and his best friends from the old house, Rich Davis and Anthony Gonzalez, had made a solemn pact to stay in touch no matter what. They spat into one another's palms and swore on it. Something always came up, though: vacations or baseball practice. And then Anthony and his family up and moved to Albuquerque in July. Rich did come over once for a day of swimming. It was fun, but Travis found there wasn't much to talk about anymore. He and Rich used to talk nonstop about everything: baseball and music and which girls they thought were cute and might actually talk to them. But that evening after dinner, while Rich and Travis sat in his room, a great big empty silence sat there with them. Every time Rich brought up something, Travis didn't know enough about it to know what to say next. And every time Travis thought of something to say, Rich only smiled and said, "Yeah, pretty cool." When Rich's parents picked him up that night, they both promised to call each other the very next day. But Rich didn't call, and neither did Travis. Excuse me. By August, Travis had to face the facts. He was lonely. His parents were always at work these days, rarely home before 8 or 9. Even on weekends, they sometimes went to work. And when they were home, they were too tired to go to the pool with Travis. The pool they had worked so hard to afford. Travis didn't get that at all. Then there was Hill. For the last few weeks of summer, he and Travis were at the pool every day. In the afternoons, when it got too hot, they'd go to Hill's and play video games. And in the evenings, when the wind died down, they'd ride their bikes all over Bella Linda Terrace. Then back to the pool for night swimming. But when school started, everything changed. Turned out you couldn't go swimming every day. Once school started, only one lifeguard was on duty, and children had to be accompanied by a parent. His new school, Torgas Middle School, was tucked into Bella Linda Terrace, and like everything else out here, it was brand new and too shiny. Because it was new, the other 8th graders seemed as lost as Travis. But Travis had Hill to hang out with, which really helped. They had homeroom, history, and math together, and ate lunch together every day in the cafeteria. Travis liked hanging out with Hill, but afternoons had fallen into a serious rut. They started every afternoon with sodas and cookies in Hill's kitchen. They goofed around for a while. That was the only word for it, goofing, which usually involved running around the house and jumping over furniture. And that was great, really. But then the video games came out. After that, it was just video games, chasing weasels or elves or robots or strange creatures Travis didn't recognize. And here they were again. Take that, Senor Weasel, Hill said. Feel the fury of my furry slingshot. Travis couldn't help himself. He laughed. But the games were boring. Always the same. Hill and Travis captured what was supposed to be captured, blew up everything else. No matter how many times they played, the story was always the same. Nothing changed. A bell pinged in the room, and Hill's computer sprang to life, the screen glowing blue in the darkness. That's them, Hill said. He shot off the sofa and tossed the joystick aside. We got 8 guys on Icon at once. You gotta help me, T. My infrastructure needs some serious work. Hill was already glued to the computer, clicking his mouse furiously. He was mumbling. Travis couldn't do it. He couldn't spend another 3 hours hunched over his best friend's shoulder, worrying about the sanitation system of a digital world. You know, man, Travis said, I just remembered. I got some extra homework. I better get going. He waited for Hill to say something. Cool, T. Check you later, was all he said. He didn't look up from his computer when Travis left. The kitchen was spotless. The countertops actually gleamed. When Travis opened the refrigerator, the white-blue light was so bright and the food so neatly arrayed, he couldn't imagine making a snack. It would be like eating plastic. He padded through the rest of the house, looking for something to do. But it was all too perfect, way too kamizatz. The carpet hushed under his feet. The furniture looked painted in place. When they moved out of Old Town, his parents purchased all new furniture, so new and clean that Travis was almost afraid to touch it. Even the garage was immaculate, the boxes of their old life stacked tidily on stainless steel shelves. The old house on Riker Street wasn't big or perfect. It was crowded and messy, full of life. The new house was a magazine ad. The only sound in the house this afternoon was the wind pushing. Whistling in doorways and windows. That sound, the wind, made the whole world seem even more quiet than it actually was. He could almost hear his mom telling him to go outside and get some air. But the wind and the heat and the stillness kept him inside. Besides, he wasn't allowed to leave Bella Linda Terrace to take his bike beyond the big stone wall. He was only allowed to ride his bike up one perfect street and down another. Travis found himself at his desk. He had homework, but it stayed in his backpack, and his backpack stayed hung on its hook on the back of his door. His parents wouldn't be home till past 8, and Travis had no idea how he was going to get through the long, quiet hours. So he stared west toward the ocean, which was a band of blue fog on the horizon. He stared past the other streets of Bella Linda Terrace, past the golf course and the dark, sharp ravine of El Toro Creek, past Highway 101. He stared at downtown Salinas, at Old Town. He thought maybe if he stared long enough, he would spot his old house on Riker Street. Then he remembered the library. Whenever he thought of his old life, the library was the first thing that sprang to mind. Every Saturday, Travis and his parents went to the nearby public library, the John Steinbeck Library. That was their weekend ritual. They'd spend the whole day there and always go home with stacks of books. As much as you can carry, his mom used to tell him. Although the library was only a few blocks from Riker Street, and it would have been a lot easier to go home for lunch, Travis and his parents always had a picnic on the library's front lawn, right at the base of the statue of John Steinbeck. This made it more like a hike than a visit to the library. Travis had always liked hanging out by the bronze likeness of Salinas' most famous citizen. Steinbeck was one of the most popular writers in the world, and tourists came from all over to see the places he wrote about, although Travis found it hard to imagine anyone wanting to spend a vacation in Salinas. But when you grew up here, Steinbeck was a part of the landscape, always there, like the wind or the mountains. Even before you read any of his books, Travis had been reading him for a few years now. He was a part of you somehow. There was something about the statue that was very special to Travis, something that didn't have to do with fame or tourists. The bronze figure was tall, lanky. He was pretty sure that was the right word. Dressed in work boots, jeans, and a shirt with the sleeves rolled up, ready to get to work. The statue's smile, under a short beard and mustache, was soft, slight. But Travis sensed that behind the smile Steinbeck was really smart and funnier than he was letting on. And his ears, those great big sticking out ears, that's how you knew it was Steinbeck. The statue always seemed alive to Travis, almost breathing. Steinbeck looked like the guardian of the library, a knight protecting his castle. Whenever they passed the statue, Travis and his parents always greeted it. "Hello, John," and each of them tapped his writing hand 3 times. They tapped the hand for good luck. Good luck in finding the exact right book. It didn't have to be a new book, or a great book particularly, but the exact right book, the one you needed on that given day. Excuse me. The library suddenly seemed more real to Travis than his desk in his room. He could see the pale yellow painted cinder block walls of the kids section, the short shelves of books there, the old beanbag chairs he sometimes fell asleep in, and the wall of windows that flooded the room with warm light. Travis realized he had to go to the library, and right now. He needed to read A Wrinkle in Time again. And tonight, maybe if he read about the planet Camazotz, his own world would feel less Camazotz. He shouldn't go. He knew that. But he had to. The urge was boiling inside of him. Could his parents actually get mad at him for going to the library? Probably. That is, if they ever found out. He raced into the garage. The tires on his bike had plenty of air, a sure sign he should go. Even with the hot wind blowing in his face, it felt great to be out of Bella Linda Terrace. Navidad Road was crowded with cars and trucks and noisy, but it felt like the real world. Travis stayed on the cracked, bumpy sidewalks, flying past trailer parks and liquor stores, churches with peeling paint, greasy-smelling auto shops, chain-link fences that had trapped scraps of paper. He pushed up the Highway 101 overpass, zoomed down Market and over to Main, headed toward the library, past Dick Broom's A Man's Store, past Beck's Red Wing Shoes, Chang's Nails, La Fogata, and Shogun Sushi, past Sheila's, the bar where his father used to work before the new job. There were people everywhere in Old Town. Packs of kids hanging out in front of the Maya Cinema, men in tight black jeans and crisp white Stetsons, moms lugging pink plastic bags of groceries, tourists on their way to the National Steinbeck Center. He leaned into the turn at San Luis, and there it was, the library. It was a squat white building, not very pretty at all, but it made Travis smile, especially when the statue of Steinbeck came into view. He locked his bike in the rack, then crossed the gold-green lawn and tapped the statue of Steinbeck 3 times on his writing hand. Good luck for a good book. The statue was almost exactly as he remembered it. Those laughing, wise eyes and great big ears. If anything, it seemed more alive today than he remembered, almost glowing in the long light of the afternoon. "Hello, John," he said, as he and his parents had always done. "It's good to be back." Travis looked around, embarrassed to be talking to a statue. Then there was shouting from behind him. Travis turned. Across the alley, in front of a sepia-toned mural of what Main Street looked like 100 years ago, an old man was yelling something. The man was dressed in a dirty blue denim jacket and tattered jeans, and he carried his belongings on a stick over his shoulder. His hat was straw and ragged. Underneath the baggy clothing, Travis could tell, the man was all skinny arms and legs. He wasn't just old, though. He seemed old-fashioned, as if he'd stepped out of the mural, out of another century. "I am Gaetano," the man was shouting, "and I have come back." A lot of homeless people lived in Old Town, and they hung around the library a lot. Travis was used to that, had grown up with that. Often one of them would be screaming, but angry screams, painful ones. This man was not angry at all. He looked tired, but he seemed happy, relieved. Everyone else going into the library ignored the man as if they couldn't see or hear him. I am Gitano, the man yelled, his face to the sky, and I have come back. He dropped his bundle on the ground and sat down next to it. He looked like he meant to rest on that spot of grass forever. Travis smiled at Gitano, then turned and entered the library. How strange. Travis had just been saying the same thing, kind of, but to a statue. Maybe it was a special day, the day of returning to the library. I am Travis, he whispered, and I have come back. End of chapter 1. Next, we will read chapter 2. See you next time.